Sick of getting blisters? Stop slipping and just be comfortable with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Great fit, great comfort, lots of grip, and an even better price. Available now at puregripsocks.com.
When it comes to top-end football boots, they're pretty much all expensive to some extent, but some are a lot more expensive than others. With the most extreme example of that, at least if you're talking about the big three brands in Nike, Adidas, and Puma, being the brand new Adidas Crazy Fast Plus, bearing a retail price of $300. And for that $300 premium, you are getting an upper that is exclusive to this football boot. However, the sole plate and stud pattern can also be found on the $260 Crazy Fast Point 1 variation. That's $40 more for a pair of football boots in the Crazy Fast Point 1. That's very similar in a lot of ways. That's $50 more than the very popular Vapor 15 Elite from Nike. That's $80 more than the Puma Ultra Ultimate, with realistically the only model in the speed category costing more than these being the Mizuno Alpha, particularly the Made in Japan model that retails for $320, but if you go for the Elite variation of that football boot, which is basically the same thing, they retail for $200, making these by far the most expensive option in the speed category that's going to give you a feature set that isn't all that different from other options on the market. This of course begs the question, is the Crazy Fast Plus worth the $300 price tag? That's exactly the question that I hope to answer for you in today's video, as we go over all the details of this boot, talk about how they compare to the less expensive alternatives out there, and of course take a look at how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, and if you're interested in a pair for yourself, you can pick them up below their normal retail price by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the first link down below. And as always, if you enjoy these brutally honest reviews, don't forget to drop a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2023. To start, I think it's only fair that we focus in on what is realistically the main selling feature of the Crazy Fast Plus, and that is how light this football boot actually is. It's the first time in a while that we've seen Adidas take a step in the direction of the F50 Adizero series that the X line effectively replaced. Nonetheless, in a size 9.5 US, we're going to compare the Crazy Fast Plus to the laced Crazy Fast Point 1 and even the Mercurial Vapor 15 Elite, just so we can see what the difference actually is. Starting off with the Vapors, you can see that they weigh in at 6.75 ounces, the equivalent of 191 grams, where the Crazy Fast Point 1 with laces weighs in at 6.9 ounces, the equivalent of 196 grams, so just a little bit more than the Vapors, where the $300 Crazy Fast Plus weighs in at a remarkably lightweight 5.95 ounces, the equivalent of 169 grams. And maybe a little over 20 grams doesn't sound like a lot of weight when you're talking about a pair of football boots, but trust me when I say the Crazy Fast Plus, not just compared to these, but compared to any boot currently on the market, is so much lighter in terms of feel on feet. It's really, really impressive. It's the lightest football boot since the OG F50 Adizero that Adidas put out in 2010, but far more comfortable than those ever were. From a weight perspective, if you're looking for the lightest possible feel, then I definitely think the $300 price tag is justified. As for everything else, this is where I think the differences are maybe a little bit less significant to the vast majority of people. Of course, both of these football boots, the Point 1 and the Plus, have very thin uppers that are going to offer a raw barefoot feel on the ball, no extra padding whatsoever. In the case of the Crazy Fast Plus, it's basically translucent, a little bit more so than even what you're going to find on the Point 1 variation. And is it noticeable that this is a little bit thinner to the touch and certainly more pliable than the Point 1 model? Absolutely, but does that translate to any real difference in terms of feel for the ball? Not necessarily. If anything, this does have a less structured feel to the upper compared to the Point 1, meaning that this football boot does inevitably feel a little bit more locked in and responsive with the laces tied tight, where these definitely do feel a little bit thinner, perhaps more comfortable because of the added pliability, but you are going to feel that upper stretch and perhaps not move quite as closely with your foot as some of the more structured thin synthetics out there. But again, that's kind of a sacrifice that they made for the sake of weight savings. Nonetheless, if you want that sensation of not wearing any football boots at all, I would say this is pretty much the best on the market in terms of giving you that type of feel. What I think is more so the selling point in regards to the upper of the Crazy Fast Plus is the U-throat construction and standalone tongue, something a lot more traditional, and again, kind of relating back to the days of the F50 Adizero, where so many speed boots these days, including the 0.1 variation, have this one-piece upper construction, which is by no means a bad thing, but if you like that traditional feel, it makes putting the boots on and taking them off significantly easier. I love the adjustability that comes along with this, and in general, it's just super comfortable and super familiar. Obviously not for everybody at this point, but to me, one of my favorite aspects of the Crazy Fast Plus upper. Another minor difference between these two boots is going to be the construction in the heel. Both are of course low cut. However, again, what you're getting with the Crazy Fast Plus is a little bit more traditional with what I would argue is a little bit more padding and a little bit less structure, which in my opinion, again, makes for slightly better comfort through the heel, but that's not to say that I have any issues with what they've done here on the 0.1. Both fit great through the rear area of the upper. And then like I mentioned earlier, the sole plate and stud patterns on these two football boots are identical. You're going to find the same plastic base for the sole plate with that plastic insert that is going to give you that super responsive sensation. The carbon insert that we saw on the Speed Flow as well as early colorways of the Speed Portal definitely would have been nice, but it looks like that partnership is over. Nonetheless, this still does give you some of the best kind of spring back effect out of any sole plate currently on the market, and obviously does a good job of keeping the overall weight of the product down. And then as far as the stud pattern is concerned, it's very aggressive in terms of giving you that nice bite when pushing off, but in general, kind of same old from Adidas in the speed category, in that they really haven't changed up this layout in quite some time. On feet, considering how light the Crazy Fast Plus is, it is remarkably comfortable. Obviously, they're not going to have that soft leather-like feel on feet because the upper is so thin, but it's very pliable and in general moves nicely with your foot, which in turn makes for a very comfortable feel. I think the traditional U-throat construction and standalone tongue is extremely refreshing and honestly something that more brands should be looking towards going back to rather than these one-piece uppers. Not to say that one-piece boots aren't good, but I think the fit that you can achieve from this more traditional construction just feels really, really good and allows for better overall adjustability. With the upper being as thin as it is, you're gonna get some ugly creasing and folds in the upper depending on the shape of your feet. So something to be aware of, but not something that is detrimental to the feel or performance of the football boot. My one criticism would be the top lace hole is maybe a little bit further forward than it needs to be, which means that you get some kind of pulling away of the upper around the ankle, particularly if you're like myself and are slightly flat-footed. I think giving you a top lacing position that's a little bit further back, or maybe even a secondary top lace hole similar to what Mizuno does, would have been a little bit better in terms of giving you a closer wrap around that area of your foot. Nonetheless, heel lockdown is not an issue here, despite the upper looking that way. And again, that's something that's very much going to change depending on the specific shape of your feet. From a width perspective, they have decent width to them. Again, plenty of adjustability because of that traditional U-throat construction, where as long as you like that snug overall fit, I think these are going to work well for most foot types. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you are looking to get a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size. For me, considering that this is by far the lightest boot on the market, it's really impressive how comfortable they are. So in conclusion, is the Crazy Fast Plus worth the $300 price tag? And I think if you're somebody that really prioritizes and values having the lightest possible feel to your football boots, if you can justify the premium on the Crazy Fast Plus compared to other speed boot models, it's definitely worth it because nothing even comes close. They are by far the lightest boots on the market. However, if having 20 grams less weight on each foot isn't all that important to you, you just want a pair of football boots that feel lightweight in general, like most other speed boots do, then I can't say the Crazy Fast Plus is justified, and what I would buy instead is the Mizuno Alpha Elite. For 2/3 of the price, a $200 retail on these guys, you are effectively getting pretty well all of the same elements in a package that weighs a little bit more, but I would argue is actually more comfortable than the Crazy Fast Plus, not to mention is going to be in the same weight range as pretty much all the other top-end options from the big brands at a lower price tag. Both have super thin uppers offering a premium barefoot feel, both have a traditional U-throat construction with a standalone tongue, both are low-cut designs, both have plastic sole plates with plastic inserts for that overall responsive feel, both have triangular shaped bladed studs, and both will feel light on feet, despite the Crazy Fast Plus definitely feeling that little bit lighter. But for an extra $100, is this boot justified over the Mizuno Alpha Elite? I guess that's for you to decide.